ambitious girl.
All we had to do was follow the damn train, CJ.
From 90s bad taste gaming aimed at blood-hungry gamers to a complex and critical satire of American culture, Grand Theft Auto has become renowned as a controversial gaming icon. Now one of the biggest franchises ever, it wasn't always this way, and it was a long and controversy-filled road for GTA to travel. Hello viewers, it's good to see you. I'm Will from Cultured Vultures, and this is basically Grand Theft Auto. If you want to see more videos like this, then don't forget to like and subscribe and just punch that bell in the face. Developed by DMI Design, who would later become known as Rockstar North, the game was originally titled Race and Chase. A racing game which saw you controlling various vehicles but allowed you to change vehicles mid-race by stealing them. Original design documents show how the act of running over pedestrians was in the earliest concepts, with the document stating that you could run over school children and lollipop ladies. Despite the promise of mowing down lollipop ladies, Race and Chase didn't exactly spark the fire that DMA Design desired, and the only race going on here was the race to cancellation. But then something unusual happened. Grand Theft Auto was a buggy mess for a long time, and it was hard to test without the game crashing. During one playtest, designer Gary Penn found a bug where the police would smash their car into the player's car incredibly aggressively. This proved to be so much fun that the team left it in the game. DMA moved away from the racing aspects of Race and Chase and switched to a more mission-based game. Missions were dished out by visiting payphones located either in Liberty City, Vice City, or San Andreas. At this stage there was no in-depth plot at play, simply completing missions unlocks harder missions, and so on and so forth. Grand Theft Auto was a major success, scoring over 3 million copies sold. Not a huge number by today's standards, but back then, well, it was a lot. The game was in the mindset of the general public as it stirred up controversy. But much of the controversy was generated by DMA themselves. DMA hired notorious publicist Max Clifford to leak stories to the press. Stories that told of the excess and violence of Grand Theft Auto. The game actually proved so controversial that it was banned in Brazil. An expansion, Grand Theft Auto Mission Pack 1 London 1969, landed in 1999 and was the first and only time Grand Theft Auto was ever set in a quote-unquote real city. As you can imagine, it featured a bubblegum Austin Powers-esque London, as well as more Cockney accents than you could shake a stick at. The expansion would itself receive another expansion in the form of freeware Grand Theft Auto Mission Pack 2 London 1961. Grand Theft Auto would receive a fully fledged standalone release for the PlayStation in the year 2000 without the need to own the original Grand Theft Auto. 1999 would see a full-fledged sequel in the form of Grand Theft Auto 2. Seemingly set in the near future, the game had an almost cyberpunk feel to it at times. Graphics and sound were improved, and the lighting gave the city a more realistic feel. They would also create a 90s AF GTA 2 the movie, an 8-minute mini-movie that would act as the game's intro, and it would be a peek into the cinematic style that DMI wanted to create, but were limited by the hardware they were working with. While accurate sales figures were not available, it is believed that Grand Theft Auto 2 sold less than its predecessor, and is one of the lowest selling Grand Theft Auto games in the series. GTA 2 was also surrounded by less controversy than other games in the series, and in comparison to GTA 1, it was more of the same. Sure, it looked nicer and played better, but it just didn't connect with fans as well. While it was far from a failure, it didn't progress the series in the way the studio had hoped. So the big question was, where would DMA go from here? Grand Theft Auto 3 would be a major turning point in the franchise when it landed on PS2 in 2001. With a totally 3D world to the players to cause mayhem in. DMA had worked on 3D worlds before with the likes of Body Harvest, but this would be the first game that put you on street level with your protagonist. This 3D world was made possible by the jump-in power of the PlayStation 2, as well as the switch to higher capacity DVDs as the primary format of the discs. Liberty City needed a fully fledged rebuild for the 3D world, and while they initially decided to build something original, they would eventually base the location on New York City, as DMA felt that the city would give them a chance to say a lot. DMA would cite the likes of The Legend of Zelda and the movie Goodfellas as influences on Grand Theft Auto 3 also. Players will take on the role of Claude, a mute protagonist, as they are tasked with performing missions for the many gangs, groups and weirdos of Liberty City. Claude's silence was an artistic choice, as silent protagonists were... okay, run the clip.
which was the style at the time.
Half-Life arguably popularised this trope, but it can be found in all sorts of games, especially those released post-millennium. Grand Theft Auto 3 received critical acclaim across the board, with critics praising the switch to 3D as well as the open, sprawling world. GTA 3 won Game of the Year at the Developers' Choice Awards, and in the United States, GTA 3 would become the biggest selling game of 2001. DMA, now rechristened Rockstar North, pushed into full production Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Originally intended as a mission pack, much like GTA London, the team decided, after much consideration, this would be better suited as a fully fledged follow-up. Vice City would launch only a year after Grand Theft Auto 3, but it would see a fair few changes. Instead of a mute protagonist, the player character was now fully voiced, and the vocals would be provided by none other than Ray Liotta. Vice City would also see a star-studded cast featuring Burt Reynolds, Tom Sizemore and Robert Davi. Having a voiced lead character expanded the storytelling aspects of the series and gave everything a much more cinematic feel. Another major change was the time period, as Vice City was placed smack bang in the 1980s, complete with an expansive selection of radio stations featuring era-appropriate tracks. Rockstar would complete the trilogy of PS2 titles with the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. San Andreas would launch in 2004, 2 years after Vice City, and saw several improvements and changes to the series. The map was larger and more varied, no longer trapped in the confines of a city. You could explore towns, forests, countryside, and so much more. There would also be some RPG-like mechanics. CJ's body would physically change based upon your actions. If you work out, he will become more muscular, eat too much fast food, and he'll become fat.
Damn.
San Andreas would also feature an enhanced stat system where you can improve CJ stats as you play. Out of the PlayStation 2 Grand Theft Auto games, San Andreas was easily the biggest seller, shifting over 20 million copies. The entire trilogy would be released elsewhere, most notably on Xbox and PC, but they were most known for their PlayStation releases. There would also be some Grand Theft Auto games released for handheld. Firstly, Grand Theft Auto Advance. Released for the Game Boy Advance, it looked more akin to the earlier GTA games with a top-down 2D grid-based Liberty City for you to traverse. And there was also 2 games for the popular PlayStation Portable, these being Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories, released in 2005 and 2006 respectively. Prequels to their respective games in the series, they both use the same cities as seen in the earlier PlayStation 2 games. But there are a few changes to the world, such as buildings under construction or details being different about the city. These games would be ported to other systems, most notably to the PlayStation 2 at a later date. All 3 of the PS2 Grand Theft Auto games would be released as a trilogy for smartphones down the line. GTA was now one of the biggest gaming franchises ever, but that brought other problems. So pour yourself a hot coffee, you're gonna need it. Jack Thompson is one of the most well-recognised names in all of Grand Theft Auto's history. He was the now disbarred lawyer who waged a crusade of good taste against the franchise, as well as the video game industry as a whole. Now, I didn't actually know much about Jack Thompson before researching this video. I just assumed that he was perhaps an ill-informed reactionary activist who disliked the game for its violence and overall content. I was wrong. Jack Thompson is a lunatic. He describes video games as a mental masturbation. Mental masturbation. Surely he could have come up with something a bit more, interesting. Wonder wanking, thoughtful thwacking. Who knows? And he has, on several occasions, attempted to bring Grand Theft Auto into court cases, and on one attempt, tried to sue Sony and publisher Take-Two Interactive. He also at one stage accused Sony, bearing in mind it's a Japanese company, of committing Pearl Harbor 2. Stay classy, Thompson. After a long back and forth with the Florida bar over his professional behaviour, the bar managed to have Thompson disbarred and he is no longer allowed to work as a lawyer. Jack Thompson's career is a lot more in-depth than we actually realised. Maybe we'll come back and take a look at him in a further video. The most famous controversy is that of Hot Coffee, a sex minigame that was buried in San Andreas' code. The minigame required CJ to visit his girlfriends for hot coffee and then would proceed to have sexual intercourse with them. The minigame was seemingly abandoned mid-development and was locked off in the game files. But of course those mad lads on PC found it and modded it back into the game. The minigame essentially looks like someone was mashing 2 action figures together and is possibly the least sexiest thing that anyone has ever witnessed. It was of course not accessible in the console version of the game, but that didn't stop calls to reassess the age rating given to San Andreas and up it to an adult-only rating due to pornographic content. Rockstar were of course not strangers to controversy, as another Rockstar game, Manhunt, was directly blamed for a teenager's murder according to the UK press. Dubbed a murder manual, there was less press attention when it turned out that the victim and not the murderer actually owned the game. Bully also had the name of its PAL release changed to Canis Canem Edit to avoid associations with actual bullying. And Jack Thompson, yeah, that guy again, described the game as a Columbine simulator, referring to the Columbine school shooting. Yet Bully contained no guns at all. There are so many controversies regarding Grand Theft Auto, it's hard to go through them all now. Once again, maybe we'll come back to them in a dedicated video in future. By the time Grand Theft Auto 4 arrived in 2008, it had been a full 4 years since San Andreas. Times had changed, the gaming industry had changed, and most importantly, Grand Theft Auto had changed. The many controversies had not stopped Grand Theft Auto, but it had changed the way it decided to present itself. No longer could GTA be the teenage barrage of violence and excess that it once was. Grand Theft Auto had to grow up. And grow up it did. GTA 4 is easily the most mature game in the series, and not for violence or bad language, but for its overall experience. Players step into the boots of Niko Bellic, an Eastern European immigrant looking to escape his criminal past. Grand Theft Auto 4 featured more grown-up themes, such as exploring the American dream and life as an immigrant in the United States. Liberty City had also been given a huge facelift. It now feels more real, believable, and lived in. The tone had also shifted. It was grittier and more believable, a far cry from the earlier game's MTV wackiness. Some of the zanier aspects of the series were gone, for instance rampages or kill frenzies. A series staple at that point were totally absent here. Gaming had grown up and GTA was growing with it. 2009 would bring more GTA content, most notably with Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars for the Nintendo DS. It returned to a similar style gameplay to the older games with an almost top-down viewpoint. The upper screen handled action and the lower screen handled the PDA, radio and other UI nonsense you may want to enjoy. Back in the day it looked as though the future of video games was in episodes. Half-Life released 2 episodes following the release of Half-Life 2, before they lost their abacuses. Abacusi? No one knows. Anyway, 1998 first-person shooter Sin was followed up with Sin Emergence, an episodic series that only saw one entry. Telltale hung their whole existence on episodic releases, and Grand Theft Auto would also get onto this trend and would release episodes from Liberty City. 2 episodes were released, The Ballad of Gay Tony and The Lost and the Damned. The Lost and the Damned is a fairly bland but still decent episode that builds upon the biker gang that was first introduced in GTA 4. The Ballad of Gay Tony is a lot of fun on the other hand, with wackier characters and big, silly set pieces. It felt like an attempt to create something a little zanier, and it really worked. But where was the next mainline game? Years would go by as fans eagerly awaited news of GTA 5. A trailer would eventually drop in 2011, but it would still be 2 years before the game finally arrived. We finally got the game in 2013, and of course it was worth the wait. We returned to San Andreas, and boy was it a jump over GTA 4. We once again received a wider world and featured not only the city of Los Santos, but mountains, rivers, woods, as well as small multiple towns all around the game world. One major development was the ability to swap characters within the open world, giving you a choice of Franklin, Trevor or Michael. Each character has different characteristics and their own story. Vehicle handling had been tweaked and felt much less slippery. It was probably less realistic but felt a lot better. The shooting mechanics feel much more modern here, with cover shooting feeling like a natural progression for the series. GTA 5 would do away with the more gritty aspects of the world, featuring a more bombastic, exaggerated America dripping in satire. Grand Theft Auto 5 was, surprise surprise, a major hit and has sold over 195 million copies worldwide. Shortly after release, we would see the release of Grand Theft Auto Online, a totally online version of Grand Theft Auto 5's map featuring races, missions, death matches and later heists. GTA Online would become a success in its own right, and through updates it would become a popular and exciting live service experience. Players could up their in-game cash using shark cards bought with real-world money, something that Rockstar found to be extremely lucrative. Rockstar would push all their resources into GTA Online, and while this provided the game with ongoing high-quality content, it proved to be a bit of a stumbling block for the series, at least creatively. Previously announced single-player content for GTA 5 would be dropped entirely in favour of pushing updates for the money-making online mode. They would eventually release some content that could be played single-player through the multiplayer experience. GTA Online proved to be so popular that development on a sequel would be placed on the back burner. GTA Online had become a license to print money for Rockstar, with the game making billions in 2021 from microtransactions alone. Years would roll by and no new GTA games would be released or even be announced by Rockstar. It's crazy to think that GTA 5 released on Xbox 360 and here we are 2 generations later still playing that same game. And what about playing the same games you knew and loved, but they're bad now? Now I say there were no GTA games released for many years, and while that is technically true, it is strictly not true. Grand Theft Auto the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, wouldn't be so much release as it would belly flop onto consoles and PC in November 2021. And holy clucking bell, would it be anything but definitive. You get the idea. Alarm bells should have rung when Grove Street Games, a company largely responsible for ports, especially to mobile, would be chosen as the developers given the unenviable task of updating the entire trilogy of PS2 classics. The relatively small team would use AI to upscale textures and character models to a modern standard, which either created incorrect textures, incorrect character models, or in some cases, broke the whole game. Montage, please. It really didn't help that Rockstar took the decision to delist all other versions of the PS2 trilogy, making this poor definitive edition the only way to play these classics. It would receive updates and sure, the game looks and plays much better these days, but the damage was done. Rockstar, who normally do a fairly solid job in regards to quality control, really dropped the ball on this one, and possibly damaged the brand as a whole. It definitely damaged this release, and to this day it still receives mixed reviews. But Definitive Edition was just a stroll down ruined memory lane ahead of potentially the most anticipated game of all time. Some fans just didn't want to wait for GTA news and took matters into their own hands. In September of 2022, 90 videos featuring 50 minutes worth of footage would be leaked online. All the footage was work in process and some showed basic animations, while some of the more detailed videos showed how GTA systems might work. It was one of the biggest leaks in gaming history and was performed by a British 17-year-old accessing Rockstar's network. The leaker had apparently managed to hack Rockstar using only a television, Amazon Fire Stick and his phone. He was deemed unfit to stand trial due to acute autism. The reveal trailer for GTA 6 was also leaked 24 hours ahead of its anticipated release, leading to Rockstar releasing the legitimate trailer early. GTA 6 was officially announced in late 2023 with a release earmarked for 2025. GTA 6 will see us return to the world of Vice City, but not as we know it. It is now set in the modern day and has been expanded to represent real-life Florida, which, given Florida's international reputation, are all aware of Florida man after all, should allow Rockstar to include some more ice-cold satire on American culture. Rumours suggest that development is running behind. Any major game is nothing without a delay, and GTA 6 may well be getting delayed into 2026. GTA 6 looks as though it's putting a big focus on creating a deep and well-written single-player component, but you better believe that there will be a major focus on recreating the success of GTA 5. There will also be some sort of live service model integrated somewhere, no doubt. But will Rockstar choose to integrate GTA 6's story mode into its online mode? Now that is very, very possible. This was basically Grand Theft Auto. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments which was your first GTA game. I'm super old and I got on board on the ground floor with the original Grand Theft Auto. Or I'm not sure I actually did any missions. I just drove around causing chaos and stealing trains. That's in the game and not in real life.